All right, let's just jump right into it. Every single one of us, every company, every leader, we all face the same massive challenge, right? How do you make smart decisions today for a future that is, completely uncertain? You don't have a crystal ball. So what do? Well, that's exactly what we're going to tackle today. We're diving into a really powerful framework for doing just that.
So yeah, I'm asking you directly. How do you plan for a future you literally can't predict? It feels like trying to navigate through a super thick fog, doesn't it? You know you've got to move forward, but you can't see more than a few feet in front of your face. It's a challenge that has, frankly, stumped people for centuries.
And hey, it's not just you. Even the experts, the people in what's called future studies, they admit it's a very fuzzy multi-field. So yeah, it's messy. But that doesn't mean we're just helpless. It just means we need to stop looking for one single perfect answer.
So, if the crystal ball is out, what's in? Well, we stop trying to find the answer, and we start learning how to ask the right questions. That's the secret. That's what cuts through the fog.
And it turns out there are really three fundamental questions that can act as our compass. First up, the predictive question, what will happen? Then there's the exploratory one, what can happen? And finally, the normative question, how can we actually reach a specific target we want? Let's dive into each one of these.
So our first approach is all about prediction. This is probably the one we're all most familiar with. It's basically about taking everything we know right now, all the data, the trends, the stuff we can see, and just projecting it forward to get a sense of where we're most likely going to end up.
Predictive scenarios are all about looking at the road ahead and just extending the lines. Imagine a city planner using population growth numbers to figure out if they need new schools, or a business forecasting next quarter's sales based on how they did last year. The big assumption here is that the basic rules of the game aren't going to change all that much.
Now, this whole prediction thing really comes in two main flavors. A forecast is the straightest line possible. It's the single most likely outcome if everything just keeps chugging along as it is. But a what-if scenario? That's built for a fork in the road, what the source material calls a bifurcation point. An election is a perfect example. A what-if scenario doesn't try to guess the winner. It explores the different likely futures that spin out from either outcome. But what happens when the rules of the game themselves might totally change? When just extending the current line isn't going to cut it. For that, we have to zoom out. We need to shift our thinking from what will happen to what can happen.
Right, so explorative scenarios are built for real, deep uncertainty. This isn't about forecasting sales next quarter. It's about imagining a world where the entire idea of sales has been turned on its head. Think about trying to plan for the future back in 1990 without even considering that something called the internet could completely reshape, everything. That's the kind of big structural change we're talking about. The goal here isn't to be right, it's to be ready.
And you guessed it, we've got two different types here as well. External scenarios look at the really big picture stuff, the huge forces outside of your control, like global markets or climate change. The point is to come up with strategies that are flexible enough to work no matter which of those futures comes to pass. Strategic scenarios, though, they flip the script. They ask, okay, what happens because of what we do? You're basically stress testing your own decisions against all those different possible worlds.
And now for our third and final category. This one, it's a game changer. It's fundamentally different. Instead of just reacting to the future or preparing for it, this one is all about proactively shaping it. This is for the visionaries, the builders, the people who want to create a specific future they've imagined.
This approach basically flips the whole map upside down. Instead of starting where you are today and trying to guess the destination, you plant a flag way out in your desired future. That's your target, and then you draw the map backward to today. It's not about finding a path, it's about creating one.
And there are two ways to build that path. The preserving approach asks, how can we hit our goal by just tweaking the system we already have, maybe making it more efficient? But the transforming approach, whoa, that's way more radical. It starts by assuming the current system is the problem. This method, which is also called backcasting, is for when you need a total break from the past, like, say, shifting an entire economy to renewable energy. You can't just tweak the old system for that. You have to build a completely new one.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, right?
We have 3 big categories and 6 totally distinct types of scenarios. Let's pull this all together into a simple little user's guide, so you can see exactly how to pick the right tool for whatever job you got.
So here it is, our user's guide. And there's a really clear pattern if you look closely. Just follow that time frame column down. We go from the short-term, kind of stable world of a forecast all the way to the very long horizon of a transforming scenario. Now look at focus. We start out external, just reacting to the world, and we slowly shift to internal and both, where we're focused on our own actions. See the pattern? The further out you look into the future, the less it's about predicting what's going to happen to you, and the more it's about deciding what you are going to make happen.
At the end of the day, none of these tools is better than any other. They're just different tools. You wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw, right? The absolute key is to match the tool to the task, and that always starts by getting crystal clear on the exact question you're trying to answer about the future.
So let's just boil this all down to its core. If your main goal is to simply adapt to what's probably coming, you want to use predictive scenarios. If you need to build resilience for a future that's super uncertain, you're going to use explorative scenarios. And if you have a clear vision that you're determined to achieve, you use normative scenarios to build that path forward. Simple as that. And that brings it all right back to you. What is it you're trying to do? Are you trying to adapt, to become more resilient, or to achieve a specific vision? What is the future that you, or your team, or your company really needs to be planning for?
Look, that fog of the future, it's always going to be there, but you don't need a crystal ball to navigate it. By understanding these different approaches, you now have exactly what you need to start asking the right questions. And that is where real planning, and honestly building a better future, truly begins.